Brad, have I ever told you my boo hag story from Savannah, Georgia?
Your boo hag story? No.
Boo hag. B-O-O-H-A-G.
How come I've
story.
never heard the boo hag story?
All right. Well, be prepared. Strap in, my friend. So my friend Fred Schroeder and I, who together we made the documentary Stripped about comic strips.
Yeah.
We get invited down to Savannah, to SCAD, the Savannah College of Art and Design, to give a little lecture, do some talks. And then we're also going to film some interviews while we're down there. And my wife joined us for the trip because why not? It's Savannah. It's beautiful. And so we're having a beer at a Savannah pub, and somebody says, hey, let's do a ghost tour around Savannah. Now, Savannah's one of those cities that's famously haunted because there's like 19 different ways that people died horrible deaths in Savannah. There were like 4 different plagues. The Civil War came through. There was a billion ways to die. And so there's a bunch of really good ghost stories. So we're like, yeah, let's do the ghost story in Savannah. We go out.
Yeah.
We meet this guy. He's about 68, 70 years old.
Yeah.
Weighs about a pound, right? He's thin as a rail, but he's got a long cane with a silver snake at the top of it, right? And he's got a top hat on, and he's got a little leather vest that's buttoned with like little frillies on it. He kind of looks like the Shadow Man from Princess of the Frog, if you remember that.
Yeah.
Do you remember that character? Don't you derogate or deride. That guy. And so, but he's this thin 68, 70-year-old guy, and he's got this amazing voice. Now, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to do a tour of Savannah. It's going to be great. And every time he makes a point, he like taps his cane on the cement. He's like, all right, everybody ready to walk? We're going to walk around Savannah. And so he starts going on the tour, and every ghost is, I guess it's a Scottish-Irish tradition that a certain type of ghost, depending on how you died, would be called a boo hag.
Hag.
So we make note of that, no big deal. But we stop midway on the ghost tour, and I think he gets a cut. We stop at a pub, and everybody gets a couple of beers, right? And everybody gets a little bit more drunker and sauce. The tour guide proceeds to down like 4 pints of beer, and I'm like, wow. All right, so this is not his first rodeo.
Yeah.
Anyway,
at this point, his blood alcohol level is like 80%.
Yeah. But Brad, the rest of the tour is just a sloshy mess because at the beginning of the tour, he's like clacking his cane and he's very fancy, and he's like, now over here is the story of the lady in white, and then she died when she fell out of the window. But what's great is by the end of the tour, he literally, I'm not kidding, he pointed to a storm drain. He was so drunk, and he goes, that's a boo hag. Over there, that's a boo hag. That whole field over there is a bunch of boo hag. And Glow and Fred and I are dying laughing because he just gave up emotionally on the tour. He's just like, that's a boo hag. Over here's all boo hag. It's just amazing. Just to me, he just gave up. He's literally pointing at like storm drains and like a water fountain. He's like, that's a boo hag over there. That's a boo hag. And anyway, on that note, I'm going to say, everybody, welcome to ComicLab, the show about making comics with boo hags.
And making a living from comics with boo hags. I'm Brad Geiger, the editor of webcomics.com and the cartoonist of Evil Inc.
And I'm his friend Dave Kellett, cartoonist of Drive and Sheldon and co-director of Stripped.
And this week's Hour of Comics Advice is made possible by your support at patreon.com/ComicLab. So Dave, let's talk comics.
Let's talk comics, my friend. And a reminder that this show is going out live right now to our friends, pals, and backers over at patreon.com/ComicLab. At the live gab level of $10, you can join us every week for a technically perfect show.
Yes.
Every week. Literally no hiccups, technologically speaking, with Dave's computer, Dave's microphone, Dave's headphones.
Every week you can see how professional podcasters ply their trade.
And we say this, of course, because it was another smooth launch for Dave Kellett this morning.
Smooth as a baby's bottom.
As every bit of technology in his arsenal worked perfectly. But Brad, what do we got to tell folks today about January 1st for the Patreon listeners that are listening right now on January 1st?
That's right. This show is coming out on January 1st for our Patreon backers. And because of that, we want to remind them that this is the day that we've been telling you about. This is the day, the Comicraft one day only January 1st, New Year's Day sale, in which each of their fonts is priced at $20.22 to celebrate the new year. Now, this is really important because some of their fonts are close to $400. A couple of the really great dialogue fonts are a couple $100. Today, you can get those for $20.22. Just go over to comicbookfonts.com and start doing what Dave and I are undoubtedly doing right now. Fill up your cart with all kinds of great dialogue fonts, sound effect fonts. You're going to use these not only in comics. I use these when I'm doing like promotional things, advertising. I use these fonts all throughout the year in everything I do, and it's because they're so darn good.
And here's how you know that Brad and I are walking the walk when it comes to Comicraft fonts, because any money that we got from the sponsorship is going right back to buying fonts from Comicraft, frankly. That's probably what's going to happen, is with the honest to God truth. So we're like that guy that bought the company. We actively use and love Comicraft fonts, so this is a no-brainer for us. Head over right now. January 1st is your 24-hour window to get those great fonts. And Brad, it is also the new year. Yeah. So I thought, and you thought, it would be a great time to talk about our plans for the upcoming year. Yeah. And it's a fun one because it's a little bit blue sky, but it's also where the rubber meets the road. We start planning out like what's achievable, what's actually doable in the year. It's a little bit more rubber meets the road than our 5-year goals, which tend to be like, I'm going to get a pony and I'm going to learn how to fly and I'm going to catch all the Pokemon and I'm going to live a magical life. But when the 20-year goals,
crow friends and I'm going to play accordion and I'm going to have finally a happiness in my heart.
Now, I got to ask you, as far as your crow friends, before we get into our year goals, have you looked up the last years of Nikola Tesla's life? Did you read what happened?
I have. Yes, I have.
I just want you to avoid that fate, okay? That's all I ask you. Don't take any more money from Westinghouse, Brad. Don't become friends with David, pigeons in New York.
Those were pigeons. These are crows. Do you see the difference? Pigeons are gold diggers. You've known this from the start. Pigeons are gold diggers.
There's a reason why Tesla had an angry end of life, and it was because of pigeons. He should have befriended crows. Yeah. They would have helped him figure out wireless transmission of energy. They would have helped him figure it out. All right. So let's say this. So, Brad, why don't you jump in on your 2022? God, I can't believe it's the year 2022. Why don't you jump in on your year 2022 goals? And tell us what you've got planned, what your hopes are, what your fears are, and where you see yourself going.
Well, I've got 3 major goals for the year. Okay. Other than my overarching goal, which is to make the 3rd year of COVID the best year of COVID ever. That's what I really want to make this the best COVID year yet.
Come on, gang, we can do it.
So here's my 3 goals, and 2 of them are connected. One of them is going to be the main goal of the year. First goal is to do a Kickstarter early in the year, probably February or March, for Evil Inc. and a couple of assorted Evil Inc. books that have been kind of backed up. One is the main Evil Inc. book. The other one is I've gotten a lot of requests, so much that I really want to see what it would be like. I'm thinking about doing a book where I combine the Evil Inc. and the After Dark stuff, because so much of the After Dark stuff winds in with the storyline, to have one book in which it just seamlessly goes back and forth between Evil Inc. and Evil Inc. After Dark and tells a continuous story, which I think would be kind of fun. And it would be really kind of a continuous way of doing that. Yes. Yes.
I'm laughing because will that be like, crime fighting? Hey, crime fighting. Hey, crime fighting. Is that?
Yes. I've done some experiment, just putting PDFs and stuff together, and it really is fun. Where it's kind of like it kind of goes between punchline setup, punchline setup, punchline plot, bedroom, and then back to the plot, bedroom. And honestly, it reads more like a romance novel, in that a romance novel isn't 100% happy fun times all the time.
It's not?
They throw some plot. Well, the ones you got to stop reading those cheap ones, Dave. Every now and again, they've got some plot thrown in just to break it up a little bit.
Just to get the characters to the other scene. Like we need to get them from the bedroom to the front door where the pizza delivery man is coming.
That's right. So no, that's my first idea. And I got to tell you, I was sitting there, my wife and I were doing 2022 planning at the kitchen table this past weekend. And she says, you think that's doable to do February? And I said, I don't know, because literally we're dealing now with stuff that we've never had to deal with, right? I'm going to have to make sure that there's paper available, that we're past any paper shortage by then. I've got to check in on shipping. I'm going to have to check in with my printer and find out an awful lot about, and of course they want to make the sale, so they're going to be very, very invested in telling me yes.
Yeah.
But I've got to somehow find a way to get an idea of whether this is feasible.
Well, can I interject real quick just to say my boat from my printer has technically arrived in the United States. It's off the coast of Long Beach, California. But here's how backed up it is. It is currently parked 150 miles off the coast of California because they have 50 ships waiting out there, and then there's another 50 ships waiting at the port, right outside the port of Long Beach. But they couldn't have 100 waiting because it was just 100 ships idling that close. The pollution would have been terrible. So they're keeping 150 miles offshore. There's another 50 right outside the port, and then there's another 20 or 30 in the port. So I'm not getting my book till well into 2022, I don't think. I think it's going to take a while. So also prepare for that.
How many months behind are you? Can you tell us, like, at this point, it's more than a week. It's more than 4 weeks behind. How many months behind is this one project?
Well, depending on, I see. Here's the thing, Brad. I can't even. I see what you're asking. As of
right now, if they got delivered to your door today,
it would be about a month behind.
Okay.
What my normal turnaround time would be, with everything running smoothly. Although I don't think I'm going to get it. I think it's going to take another month or two to get it into port. Yeah. And then I think it's going to be sitting on the docks for a while because, there's also a trucker and a carriage shortage. Yeah. So I don't know that I'm going to get those pallets of books for a while yet. Anyway, so long story short, you got a year ahead of you, my friend. I'm currently in it, and it's not fun.
Yeah, and that's the other reason I would like to do it early, because if I do it in February, the main idea and the main danger of doing a Kickstarter later in the year is that you don't want to carry that money over into the next year. Right? Because then you get taxed on it. So you want to show as much of those expenses as you possibly can, so you're not getting taxed on the money that's not currently being used for expenses. Right. As if it were profit. So that's the other reason I'd like to do one. And if I do it, like we're talking February, it would be the best time. As far as like the backers, you can give the backers a heads up. That's very easy, right? Mm-hmm. You can point to the news and say, listen, this is what we're dealing with. It's beyond my control. In my experience, the backers are very, very happy. If you are honest with them, here's what's going on, they'll take that. My bigger worry is taxes, is carrying that money over into the next year. So yeah, that's my one goal. But I'm like trepidous as can be.
Trepidous.
It is with trepidation that I approach this, because I'm scared. In fact, I've been scared to ask you, even outside of the show, about your book. I'm glad you brought it up, because I know that it's a cause of stress for you.
I'm more fascinated about the word trepidous. I want to look that up, and I have that 20-volume set of the OED afterwards. Yeah, is trepidous an actual version of trepidatious?
Yes.
Oh, wow. That's cool. I've never heard that version before. It's an official,
you don't even, listen, don't bother looking it up. I can tell you 100%. It is a version of trepidatious. Yeah.
Oh my God. Now it's such a fake it till you make it moment. Like, yep, it's a word. Trepidatious is real. Don't go to the, I'm actively telling you, do not go to the dictionary.
You've got better things to do than to go out there. So that's my first goal is to look at a February Kickstarter. So my second goal is this. I have reached a brick wall in productivity and truthfully in revenue as well. I've reached a brick wall. I've gone as far as I can go because it's what I can do. I can't do more than I can do. Right. And at this point, I do a ridiculous amount of exclusives for Patreon.
You crank them out.
I'm posting just about every day, and of course, some of that is sketches and stuff. But I'm posting a lot of stuff. I can't post any more than I'm posting right now. And so, in order to grow my business, I've come to a point where I've got to look at hiring an assistant again now.
That's what I was just about to say, but I knew what was going to happen as soon as I said that. Is you immediately get that sphincter tightening, and you're like, I don't want to hire an assistant. I don't want to do it. Don't make me hire an assistant.
No, I know. Well, so here's the thing, because I was going through this and thinking about it, and so last time I tried to hire assistants, every assistant I brought in was somebody who I immediately put in charge of social media. Basically, I said, listen, if you can do all these social media posts, then it'll free up my time to do other things. The problem was there was, number one, it was hard to get them to do what I wanted them to do. Number two, even when they did, I was spending a lot of money and getting very little in return. Right, I was getting no social media juice out of it. They weren't moving the needle, and it wasn't actually saving me that much time. Right? It just wasn't. What?
What's great is you describing your adventures in managing human beings. A little bit sounds like a guy just complaining in a grocery store line, like, the line's moving too slow. And why do these bags hold so few groceries? And this floor is slippery. Will no one mop up this floor for Brad Geiger? And why isn't anyone listening to me? I have great ideas. Why won't people listen to me? This is what your management style sounds like. And I ask them to do things, and they don't do it. And then I say, have they brought me value? They haven't brought me value. Why are things not working for Brad Geiger?
I wish I could tell you to go to hell, but here's the problem. You're very, very right. I wish I could disagree with you. I'm not good at this. I'm very hands off. And then it's like, well, how come you're not doing it the way I want you to do it? But I've got to take another tilt at this. I have to. And I think what I need to do is I need to bring in not somebody for social media. It's not important. It's really not. And what I need somebody to do is to more come in as an editorial assistant. Somebody that can come in and somebody who would have graphic design skills, video, some rudimentary video editing skills, and also organizational skills that I can say, okay, very much the way I think, if I'm perceiving this correctly, and you can tell me if I'm wrong, Beth has a very hands-on role with all of the Kickstarters that you do, correct?
So and so for people that don't know, Beth is my assistant in my studio, who's amazing, and she's very hands-on in terms of. And I will say that I have had 4 different assistants over the years, and I've loved all of them, and I'm so proud of them. They've gone on to great things, but the first 3 didn't come from an art background, and Beth did, and I have to tell you, Brad, that has made a world of difference. I feel like I'm a Robert Frost poem, and that's made all the difference. Beth is basically what you want to hire is a mini you,
Yes.
Someone who has roughly your skill set. Maybe it's a little different. Maybe maybe like in Beth's case, it's far better with color theory and management than I am. Far better with Excel, for example. She's amazing at Excel. So that anytime we ever need to do something with data organization, she's like, I'm on it with an Excel sheet. And I'm like, I don't know how to do Excel. That's great. I'm terrible at it. So what I'm getting at is you want someone who's, I think, as an artist assistant, someone who complements a version of what you do on a day-to-day basis. Yeah. And that's file preparations. I'll tell you an example of something that Beth does that my previous assistants never could have done. I will sometimes get commissions, and I'll say to Beth, do 2 or 3 super quick pencil sketches of just possible compositions just to get me so that I can jump right in and go, that's the best of the 3. I will build off of that one. You know what I mean? It doesn't even have to be more than skeletonized. It's just help me. It's basically a help for an ideation process. And I think you would benefit from that kind of stuff.
Oh my God. Yeah. And what you're saying is what I've kind of been saying in private. And it's what makes it hard to find this person is that they need to have roughly my skill set. Right. And my feeling is if there's somebody out there with my skill set, they're doing their own thing. They don't want anything to do with Brad Geiger.
I have a surefire way to find somebody with your skill set. I want you to go down to your local grocery store and
I was so hopeful there for a minute.
look for an older gent about 3 guys deep in the line. And he's one side of the shirt is not tucked in. The shoes are a little out of date. And he's complaining about the clouds. You know, he's like, why are they all so fluffy? I don't want them to be so fluffy. Will no one help me with my grocery bags? Why is no one listening to me? And then it'll be a weird wrinkle in time if that older guy suddenly goes, I'm Brad Geiger. No, here's what I think you want to do. You want to find a recent art school graduate.
I've had such bad luck with young people.
Here's the thing, though. Here's what you want to do. You want to hire a high school graduate after they've had 1 or 2 real world jobs. And I'm not joking about that.
Yeah.
Because you want somebody both with a little bit of real world experience. They've cut their teeth in the corporate world or they've cut their teeth in the real world. But also, I genuinely think that a kid right out of college doesn't appreciate how good or how bad a job could be until they've had a truly bad one. Yeah. So it's nice to hire somebody after a bad job because you're like, no, we can be kind to each other. We can be pleasant. We can have fun. We can laugh a lot in the studio. Right. And so I think that helps. So maybe hire someone hire somebody away from a video game studio. They'll be so happy to get out of there. Are you kidding me? No harassment, no ridiculous 100-hour weeks. They'll love you. They'll be so happy to work.
And I'll tell you what else I'm looking for. Somebody who doesn't necessarily live in Philadelphia because I'm telling you, I want a remote worker. I do not like sharing my space. You do not like the person I'm looking for does not. I'm thinking maybe it's even better they don't live in Philadelphia because the idea of having somebody in here in my space, especially after COVID, where I've turned into a hermit anyway. But now, literally, I joked about it at the beginning of the show, going into the 3rd year of COVID. I don't want any more vectors than I have to deal with either. So the other thing is that I want to find somebody who's not only comfortable working remotely, but I can trust them to work remotely.
Okay, and before I give you a serious follow-up to that, I got a question for you.
Yeah.
Do we know if crows can be a vector for coronavirus? Have we checked in on that?
Notably, no. I don't. I think crows have a natural immunity. Pigeons are carriers, but crows have a natural immunity.
I know you can have an avian flu, but you can't have a coronavirus avian passage. All right, well, that's good. So maybe you just need to hire a team of crows. I think that might be the way to go.
Could you imagine how wonderful that would be?
Oh my God! What is it? A Disney movie? Sing a little song, draw a little cartoon of people boning. I'm Brad Geiger.
When the mice are helping Cinderella do her dress, Cinderella, we can do it, Cinderella. It'll be just like that. Bradley Geiger, we can draw it.
Imagine Brad Geiger twirling around in his studio, like fingers touching his thumbs, with his arms up in his air, his fingers touching his thumbs, and he's singing Bradley Geiger, and they're putting the beautiful pink dress with chiffon on him, and he's Brad singing, I'm gonna draw people boning, Bradley Geiger, da 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 da, gonna have a lovely day. And the crows are dancing around and bringing you your Wacom pen.
Bippity boppity boobs.
Oh God, it was right there. So anyway, God. No, I think, hire an art grad with organizational skills, hire an art grad after they've had a bad job. What video game, honest to God, what video game companies are in Philadelphia? Although maybe you don't. Okay, you said no. You want remoted. That's what I was going to respond to.
I want remote workers. Here's the thing. Here's my real question, Dave.
Yeah.
How do I put the word out? Where do I have to take?
You just did. You just did.
For anybody listening, get in touch. But like, should I put this on Twitter? Should I put this on monster.com? I mean, how serious do I get with this?
I think transparency is probably your friend here. You could absolutely list the job posting.
Yeah.
I personally think, since it's remote, you might benefit from offering something that's only 20 hours, 15 hours, 30 hours a week, because you might get somebody who wants to be a stay-at-home parent,
right,
or somebody who only wants a limited amount of hours. I don't know that you want someone 40 hours a week.
No, at least not to start out. I mean, because for me, it's also going to have to be, how does this work? How is this working well? And then if it's working well, we can ramp it up. But I'm not going to start, at a high rate until I can see that this is actually working,
Yes. Yeah. So you can put that in the listing, like, potential to growth to 40 hours if this works out for both of us. I think look back, do a Google search, because Robert Koo used to post job openings at Penny Arcade. And you can see how he was described it, although that might not be perfect translation for what you're hiring, but you know what I mean? Like, you can see how someone with a transparent, open listing would list it. And then, you can always, if the paid services, there's a few free ones. I think Craigslist might offer jobs. You could post all the details on Craigslist for free. But then with your reach, social media reach, you could, make that broad and public. The tricky part for you, and this is tricky for all cartoonists that we should mention, is that you don't necessarily want to hire a fan or a reader.
Yeah.
That gets tricky. Although I don't know, I should ask Beth, but I guess Beth was a reader beforehand. Because she came up to the booth about a decade before I hired her. So yeah, no, she was a reader. I
remember Beth interacting on social media quite a bit, because I remembered her avatar, and then when I saw it when she started working with you, it's like, oh yeah, I remember this person.
And I remember while she was going through art school, complimenting her growth and her art as it went. So I guess she was a reader. Yes. I don't know why I had a blank on that.
But you're right that's got to be something that you gauge.
It is.
I guess you want a fan. You don't want a super fan.
Yeah. What you don't want is, Brad, hello. If you're not going to use those fingernails anymore, well, I'll take all of those. That would be most lovely. I'll take those. Yes, I've got the files ready. Do you have the hair clippings that I requested, Brad? I just want.
No, but I mean, bringing this section to a close, I think you're right, and that really is going to have to be the big priority for next year, because my third goal is to get that Webcomics Handbook second edition out before that's something, and that's been a goal. If you're a longtime listener, that's been a goal for the last couple of years, is to get that out. It is a huge undertaking. It's a lot of editing. It's a lot of getting things in the right shape. And at best, that would be towards the end of the year, August or September, because again, I'm so uncomfortable going much further than that, especially these days in Kickstarter, and taking that risk of paying taxes on Kickstarter money.
Yeah. As it stands right now, most of my Kickstarter expenses thankfully landed in the same year. Although, as we just said, because my books are landing in 2022, my shipping costs are going to hit me in that year. It's fine. Tax wise, it'll kind of all wash out in the rain, but it'll
wash out in 2 years. Yeah, it's not going to cripple you.
It's not the worst thing.
Is there any way you can prepay a certain amount of shipping?
No, because you can only load up your Indicia account to like $400, and it's going to be like $15,000 of shipping, maybe $18,000 of shipping. So it's going to be a lot. All right, Brad. Well, that wraps up your 3 goals. So Kickstarter, hiring, and Kickstarter again. Although those two, I just want to let you know, when you can bookend 2 things with the same word, that could have been combined into one goal. So that's just one. Just a little pro tip for you conversationally. When you say like, I'd like to have a glass of water and then a sandwich and then a glass of water, you could just say, I'd like to have a glass of water and a sandwich. That's what you could say.
I'd like a Bloody Mary, a steak sandwich, and a steak sandwich.
So you have 3 goals. No, 2 Kickstarter projects.
Yeah.
Frankly, I heard 3 Kickstarter projects in the way you described it, because you have a potential pure Evil Ink book, a potential Evil Ink hybrid book, which I think is bigger and more interesting sounding, frankly.
Mhm.
And then the second webcomics book, and then hiring an assistant.
Right. So I got a lot on tap for next year if I can make it work.
And in 2022, going anywhere? Any shows? Any talks?
Well, other than the Charles Schulz Museum in November, no. That is definitely not on the radar. Personal travel, maybe, but the big one for me is the Charles Schulz Museum in November.
Now, broader strokes question. I've never asked you this, and I'm putting you on the spot. Your kids are getting ready to all go to college in the years ahead, right? So soon you'll have a somewhat open house. Are you considering moving your studio back into the house, or have you come like me to appreciate a sort of separation of studio and house?
I got to tell you, I like driving to the studio. I'll keep everything here because not only do I have a very big space to work in here, but I've also got a storage closet across the hall and an entire warehouse space down the hall. So to move all of that into the house would probably drive my wife crazy. So I got a feeling I'm staying here in the studio.
Okay. All right. Just curious about that. All right, cool. Well, that's great for your 2022 year. And any physical changes, any technological changes, any new upgrades or anything, or no, no websites are staying the same. Computers are staying the same.
That's a good question. I upgraded my Cintiqs a while ago, so I've got a really nice rig to draw on there, and I'm set for computers as long as they stay alive. So no, I think we're pretty much set equipment wise as well.
Hey, if you're listening while you work, take a minute to stand and stretch.
And while you're doing that, we're going to tell you why you should join us on Patreon.
When you do, you're going to get hours and hours of podcasts that we've recorded just for backers.
And exclusive Patreon posts that go even deeper on ComicLab topics.
And access to our exclusive Discord server, which is a thriving community of professional cartoonists.
So you can support the show you love and get tons of actionable resources for your own cartooning.
And listen, if you can't swing a pledge this month, we get it. No worries.
Yeah, listen, you can still support the show by rating us wherever you get your podcasts.
Just leave a 5-star review and a few kind words.
That, along with mentions on social media, is incredibly helpful.
Now, everybody, let's talk comics.
Dave, speaking of Wacom, we should probably take a moment to thank our longtime sponsor, Wacom at WACOM.com, the makers of the portable, powerful, professional Wacom One.
I'm looking forward to Wacoming into 2022, Brad. See what I did there? That didn't work at all. I apologize, Wacom. I tried it. I made the swing. It didn't work. Wacoming in the year 2022. Anyway, I like you. I don't need to upgrade at all because I've got the Cintiq Pro in the studio. I've got the Wacom One in the studio, and between those two, it's a power pack of professional portable results. Look what I did. I just pulled a Brad Stan Leeism right there.
You did.
Excelsior, true believe it's the powerful, portable, professional Wacom One.
Although I will tell you this, if you at home are making your own personal list for 2022 and you have an equipment upgrade on that list, man, I'm telling you, I cannot think of a better candidate, especially for digital artists or for that artist who's considering going digital, doesn't want to, not sure whether it's a good fit. I'm telling you, that price point on the Wacom One is going to make this an easy decision for you.
The price point is a key thing in terms of like they used to be so expensive, and what you get for the Wacom One for the price is amazing, and it's a great way to jump into digital, and that's the honest to God truth. If you're thinking about it, it's a great way to dive in and experience what it is to draw digitally. So we give a huge shout out and a thank you to our friends Wacom over at WACOM.com. Wacoming in the year with our friends. I tried it again. It still didn't work.
Didn't work any better the second time. Well, Dave, I have shared anywhere from 1 to 3 to 4 of my ideas for 2022. My question for you now is, what are your plans for 2022?
I'm appreciating it. Dave, I've shared upwards of 9 to 15 of my ideas, half of which involve the word Kickstarter. So I'm just going to say just an unending series of ideas for 2022 from Brad Geiger. Okay, so I've got a couple things. The thing that I'm currently working on now, and it's a huge shout out to my friend Brad Geiger for encouraging me to do it, My Drive website is long overdue
Yeah.
for a new design. And maybe even by the time you're hearing this podcast, it's live, but hopefully within the next 4 to 6 weeks, it's live. Drive is about a 10-year-old website, very old, running on somewhat custom code. And so we're bringing it over to the Tucheki platform.
Yes.
And I've got some, I think, cool innovations in terms of the way it's going to have an archive. I did a little cool hunting around the web. You know, Brad, that phrase that I like to use from
Cool
my
hunting.
Mattel days. Cool hunting is sort of where you find the best practices of a bunch of different people and you roll it into what you're doing. And so I took a little bit from Brad, a little bit from here, a little bit from there. And the Drive website is coming along. That should launch in the first half of 2022. And provided that one goes well, Sheldon will be in the second half of 2022. So that's my big technological leap for year. So that's goal number one. Second goal is probably late summer or fall. I'm going to be kickstarting an Anatomy of Dinosaurs book, which should be fun. If you remember before, I kind of left it up to Brad Geiger whether I should do Anatomy of Dogs or Anatomy of Dinosaurs. And Brad immediately put the kibosh on dogs. Brad was
Dinosaurs.
like, no, human beings hate dogs. Dogs are mean. They're terrible. No one likes dogs.
Nobody's going to buy that dog book. Are you kidding me? Dinosaurs all the way.
Meanwhile, Marmaduke on its 75-year run, I think. Anyway, so yeah, I'm going to do, well, I'll be honest with you, Brad, and this is fun to talk about from a cartoonist standpoint, is that Beth and I had a talk about dogs are fun. She and I are huge dog people. We love to get our dogs together when we're working in the studio. But there is a certain sameness to drawing dogs for page after page after page. You know what I mean? They always have 4 legs. They always have a tail. They always have ears. And yes, there's variegation and there's variation in that, but it's not the same as the difference between a pterodactyl and a triceratops and a allosaur or whatever you want to say. Those are worlds of difference in terms of drawing different figures and shapes.
Yeah, and not only that, but all these different dinosaurs have amazing physical characteristics that are bizarre, like the Stegosaurus's tail, or that Brontosaurus that had his nostrils way above his forehead.
Brachiosaur,
all of these different dinosaur types have such unusual and bizarre physical attributes that it's going to make writing this thing a joy.
And because we only have like 3 samples of what dinosaur skin look like, Beth can go to town on coloring. She can have some of them look like leopards, some of them look like cheetahs, some of them look like a tropical bird, some of them look very, because dinosaurs, like modern animals, ran the gamut in terms of what their stylizations were in terms of skin tone and feathering and all that sort of stuff. So it's going to be fun to do. I think the Anatomy of Dinosaurs book will be really fun. And
I saw you tweet about that, and I literally, sitting here in my studio, let out an audible gasp because I really was excited by that. I was truly thrilled to see that you're going to be doing that because I know how good it's going to be.
What's fun too is like we're going to have like 45, 60 pages of dinosaurs, and then somewhere on like page 60, I think I might do like one of the Dinobots from Transformers, just to throw everybody, or there was another one. What was the other one we were going to have?
Godzilla. Godzilla is a dinosaur who's not a dinosaur.
Yeah, Beth and I we were brainstorming different things that are not dinosaurs that towards the end of the book I can throw in just as pure jokes. Like maybe pick one of the Pokemon that kind of looks like a dinosaur. Charizard. What the hell is he? Exactly. So I think it'll be a fun book, and it's a fun step away from Sheldon, which, let's be honest, at the 20-year point, it's nice to step away from time to time so that I can come back recharged and that sort of thing. So that's the second one. The third one, I have probably 4 or 5 goals. The third one is appearances. One is the Schultz Museum, which, knock on wood, goes forward in November. Please Omicron, please Omicron, please Omicron. Yeah. And so if that goes forward in November, I'm really, really looking forward to that with you. I think that'll be a tremendously fun trip, and I hope many of the listeners here can make their way out to Santa Clara to join us, because I think it'll be a really fun time at the Schultz Museum. The other appearance might be San Diego Comic-Con this summer. I'm still on the fence, which says a lot about where we are, that I'm not sure if I'm doing San Diego Comic-Con. Because you know me, Brad, I know you have given up on shows, rightly so. I still love San Diego Comic-Con. I literally get a charge out of it. So the fact that I'm on the fence about whether I would do it again is interesting to me. It's a weird space to be in. In fact, can I pause my goals for a second, Brad, and just say that Emerald City Comic Con happened this past weekend,
Yeah.
And I was checking the hashtags on social media.
Ooh.
Brad, I had no FOMO. In fact, I had the opposite of FOMO. I was like, why are people, we're still in a pandemic. Why are you going to a convention? And I had no FOMO. I had the opposite of FOMO. And I was like, what does this portend for me going to conventions? If even Emerald City, I'm like, yikes, I'm not going back up there. No thanks, Tom Hanks. And so, and furthermore, I was looking at the crowds and kind of reading the tea leaves in a way that only a pro could do, and realizing I don't think sales were that good at Emerald City Comic Con. So the payoff here is you're exposing yourself to an infinitely higher number of vectors of disease, and you're making or losing money, or making less money or losing money. I don't know that I didn't miss that at all for what it's worth, you know?
Yeah. Instead of FOMO, you had ROMO. You had relief over missing out.
Romo!
You had ROMO.
Romo sounds like a robotic dog from the 80s. You'll love playing with Romo. Romo can bark. Romo can roll over.
Bark, bark, bark. Bark, bark, bark.
Why did the shitty bark get me? Yo, because you know what it is? It's the hyperbolic. I'll do the hyperbolic say again. Yeah. You'll love how Romo barks.
Bark, bark, bark. So anyway, did you try to get your money back from that show?
I did.
You were paid in advance. Did you try to get your money back?
I made a deposit. I did not get my deposit back. So I'm actually quite angry about that with Reed.
Oh, don't be angry. Dave, don't be angry. They did you the biggest favor in the world. I saw those photos too. This is the least amount of money you would have lost by by this show. If they would have actually done anything else, you would have lost way more money.
Well, you know, my Irish grandmother used to always say, judge people based on how they treat people. And San Diego Comic-Con, I think I had a $4,000 or $5,000 deposit for my booth or whatever it was. Immediate refund. San Diego was like, here's your money back. No problem at all. You're welcome back when you want to come back. Emerald City Emerald, nothing, like radio silence. And then, no, we can't give you your money back. Yeah. Clearly they are cash poor as a company. Reed is cash poor. And they were not giving me my money back. And I was mad about it. So anyway, what was I going to say? Anyway, so I don't know that I'm going to go back to Seattle. We'll see how that goes. How that goes. But so San Diego Comic-Con, Schultz Museum for performances or for appearances. And then the final thing, I may have a second project that I kickstart at the end of the year if time and tide allow for it. And I think it's either going to be the children's book, which keeps getting pushed back in my own schedule. Yeah. And I might have to do some soul searching about why that keeps getting pushed back, because maybe I'm not yet. The fact that I keep allowing it to get pushed back tells me that maybe I'm not yet ready to do it. You know what I mean? Psychologically. Sometimes your own actions betray themselves in terms of the meaning behind them. And the very fact that keeps getting pushed back behind other projects maybe means that doesn't spark for me as much as I thought it would. And so that's a possibility. But then the other one is I still kind of want to do a board game based on Drive, which I think would be really fun.
Really? I've never heard you talk about this before.
Have I never taught? You know, I started playtesting certain bare muddles of it, but I want to do a board game. I've always, with great admiration, looked at David Malky and his ability to duck into different kind of projects, and his ability to go into board games and gaming in general. I've always been in admiration of. And so I thought I would try it with Drive, which to me feels like a crowd that would very much appreciate a game. Yeah. And since my family is such big board gamers, I thought kind of in the German tradition of like those cooler board games, not like an American tradition where you're frustrated after hour three and you want to throw it through a window, you know, that kind of thing. Yeah. So we'll see if that happens. But those are my goals for 2022. What are your thoughts? What am I doing right? What am I doing wrong?
I'll tell you what you're doing right is making me feel better for not achieving my webcomics handbook last year. Because I'm so happy that you shared that you had pushed off the children's book because I'd completely forgotten, and I was feeling kind of lousy about not having achieved one of my goals. And I'm glad to hear that that it happens to other people too. Thank you for sharing that happened, because I was feeling lousy about myself, and now I don't feel so bad.
It's good to be honest about it. That I don't get me wrong. I love my career. I love where everything is, but not every decision is sunshine and roses. And that children's book, for whatever reason, we've done color tests on it. We did a test page to see if we like the interplay of line art and color. I have the script probably 80-90% done, although you know what I mean, that last 10% is always the equal to 80% of the work whenever you're finessing something like that. But
Yeah.
what I'm getting at is it's not like I haven't put time into it, but for whatever reason, I keep allowing it to fall off my schedule.
Yeah.
It's not that it does it, I allow it. And there must be a reason. And I've got to look inside my own heart as to why I'm allowing that project to get pushed back on my schedule.
Yeah.
There's always a shinier rock, basically. And don't get me wrong, the other shiny rocks bring income, so it works out fine for the studio. But at some point, I would like to make that children's book.
Yeah.
We'll see. Maybe it's when I'm a grandparent. Maybe that's what it'll be. I don't know.
But overall, your plan for 2022 sounds very, very solid. I co-sign all of it. And it's also, like I said, like we just got done talking about, I'm very fascinated to find out where you end up dropping on Emerald City, because I think, just my own opinion, I think that one was a long time in coming. And I still don't. My general prognosticating for this year is that I don't think comic conventions are coming back that strong this year either. I don't think they came back strong last year. And even without take COVID off the table, I think that the readership, the community, the comics in general has moved past comic conventions. I think they're almost anachronistic at this point.
Here's what I see just on social media from like Emerald City Comic Con and San Diego Comic Con Special Edition. Yeah. I see 60, 70, and 80-year-olds that were basically desperate for income. Kind of not what's past. It's not golden age, not silver age. What's like the Neil Adams generation? What's that called?
Oh, that's either Bronze Age or Platinum Age.
Platinum Age? Okay.
Yeah.
The age that got screwed over contract-wise from Marvel and DC is what it is.
That is Silver Age. Those guys got screwed
Silver Age
badly.
really got screwed. But yeah, okay, so Platinum Age. I see all those people having to do shows because, frankly, selling their signature is all they've got left, you know, or selling back issues that are signed is all they have left. And then I see, personally, a lot of 20 and 30-year-old cartoonists exhibiting because they're like, I got a table. I've never been able to get a table before.
Yeah.
And there's a reason why you were never able to get a table before, but this year you were.
Because nobody else wants them this year.
Exactly. And so that's what I felt like that was the first wave of people going back to the show. I didn't see a lot of people, our generation, the sort of working cartoonists that are established in their studio, like, this is a good time for me to meet 80,000 people. I think that, you know, like no one in our generation went, really, I don't think. But I would love to, and frankly, write into the show, both on the Discord server or to Brad in my email. I would love to hear people's reaction to how either San Diego Comic-Con Special Edition or Emerald City Comic-Con went, because frankly, it's just professional curiosity. We'd love to know how it went. And especially if it was fun for you, good for you. That was great. I'd like to hear why and what was good about it. Because I can imagine there's two types of people that have come through the pandemic. People that are either financially like, yikes, I'm barely holding on, or people that are oddly flush with cash because they're not spending on anything. And so I can imagine that even if crowds were less at these shows, there might have been big spenders that are like Daddy Warbucks throwing 100 here, 100 there, 100 everywhere because they've got money to burn. Maybe. I don't know.
Judging from the photos I saw, I would hope that comprises 80% of the people that I saw, because I didn't see enough people for, you know what I'm saying?
Yes.
It was
Physically,
such a
I didn't see
low
enough
turnout
people.
that they would all have to be Daddy Warbucks to make this a good show.
Yeah. So I agree with you that Emerald City Comic-Con might be off my table going forward. Gosh, I will miss San Diego Comic-Con if I don't do that one, but it is what it is. And so we'll play it by ear there.
So, Dave, now that we've wrapped up 2022 planning, we've got a little bit of extra time, and I see here in the show notes, you've got something here listed, and I've got a preview of it here in your note, and I think it's just a little bit of brilliant the way you've put this that I really want to share with our readers, and it has to do with Word Balloon Tales.
Oh, yeah. So I really want to talk to you about this because I sort of had a revelation the other day, and once it hit me, I was like, why? Here's where it sprung from. I was reading a comic that had a lot of word balloons where the tail would come out of the side of the word balloon.
Yeah.
And I was like, I know I don't like this, but what do I like? How could I quantify what works with a word balloon, right? And so here's my working theory, and you tell me what you think of this for a word balloon. So take your word balloon, imagine whatever shape it is. Is it circular? Is it oval? Whatever it is. Take your word balloon and now draw an X-Men X in the middle of in the exact center out to the edges of that word balloon, right? My theory is that your tail should land between the two legs of the X.
Yes.
It should never go on the top, and because when it does, it never looks right. And it should rarely go on the sides. And if it does, it should cheat towards the bottom side of the word balloon. But if you can, it should land between the two legs of the X in the middle of your word balloon. What do you think about that as a guiding point for cartoonists?
I think that's brilliant. Of course, every now and again, you are going to have to put it at the top if your word balloon is floating low in the panel.
Sure.
But listen, not for nothing, because I was thinking about this as a tangent. If you're putting word balloons at the bottom of your panel, you really have to think hard about the decision you're making, because it's not a great place. Those word balloons, there's a reason that I call them balloons. They're supposed to float. They're up in the air, right?
Yeah, what? Maybe that's what I'm reacting to as far as having the tail below. It's supposed to be akin to a string holding it as it floats. Yeah.
And I see this in comics quite a bit where, the person floats the balloon at the bottom of the panel. And I look at the composition and I'm like, I could recompose that in 30 seconds and make that a better panel and have both of the balloons up in the top. When you're making your reader's eyes bounce up and down and up and down and up and down, I don't think that's a great reading experience for me.
Agreed.
So every now and again, yes, you're going to have that tail at the top of the balloon if you're floating that balloon down low in the panel, but mostly it should be below. So here's one addendum, because I want them to draw the right X. Right? I like your X, but I want them to draw the right X. So here's how I would suggest, and you tell me what you think of this.
Okay.
When you're drawing your X, you start at the top line of text on the very left. In other words, the very first letter in your top line of text. You're going to start your X there, and you're going to go all the way down to the last punctuation in the last line.
Oh, I see what you're saying.
You're
envisioning a word balloon where the text has already been placed into it.
Yeah.
And now you're drawing the X visually. Okay.
Because that's important, where the text is.
Yeah.
And then you're going to take the last letter in the first line and draw that line down to the first letter in the last line. And now you got your X. Because here's the thing, Dave, you could draw any kind of X inside that. You could draw a skinny X, you could draw a wide X. I want them to draw the right X.
Yes.
And that goes from the first letter of the first line to the last punctuation mark. And then from the last letter in the first line to the first letter in the last line. And that's your X.
What's great about this is you have vocalized something that I was intuiting, but I hadn't put into words. So I appreciate that, because you have made it much more concrete for people. So anyway, I'm really glad that you like this idea of an X, because for me, it gives you an instant way to see, like, oh no, there's a reason why my tail over on this side of the word balloon doesn't quite look right, doesn't sit right, doesn't feel right. Something about it being on the side is never satisfying. And frankly, on the top, it's always a little wonkified. It's never right, And so I've done it myself. In fact, the shell that I'm drawing right now has a word balloon where the tail comes off the top. And I say this as the person who's drawing it. It's not quite right. I wish I had been able to structure that panel differently. So anyway, I want to lay claim to this one now, because Brad has like 19 Geiger's laws of blankety blank. So this will be Dave's law of X. How are we going to call this?
Oh my God, we have our first Kellett's law. This is wonderful.
Oh my God, it's like a proud father. My sweet baby. I'm looking through the window of the hospital, and I'm pointing at it from the hallway. That's my baby.
Kellett's law of word balloon X's.
Or Kellett's law of X marks the spot. We're gonna have to workshop this. This is not going. I don't have a name for my baby. Someone help me in the hospital. My baby doesn't have a name.
Dave, speaking of word balloons and lettering, I've got a $5 level question that is perfect, because it's gonna dovetail nicely with what we've already been talking about. This comes in from our Patreon backer Tahid Bandia, also somebody who was once a guest on the show, does a wonderful comic called Crabgrass. And this is a great question, because I thought I was the only one So thank you for making me feel like I'm a normal person. Tahid says, just a simple one, guys. Do you recommend bolding punctuation, especially commas, when they come after a bolded word? I've opted to do so because a dinky little comma always looks wrong beside a bolded text, but it also feels like a silly thing to do. David Kellett, the owner of the Kellett Law of Word Balloon X's, I need you to weigh in on this question.
So I actually have an opinion on this. It's funny that this is a universal problem that we all face. Here is my rule. When a bolded word or phrase comes up against the termination of a sentence, a period, an exclamation point, or a question mark, I will bold that form of punctuation. When it comes up against a break in a sentence, a comma, a colon, a semicolon, I will not bold that one. How about you, Brad? What do you do?
I choose to bold any punctuation that comes after a bolded letter indiscriminately. It's just like, because it helps me if I just have one rule that I follow.
Sure.
So I try to be as consistent as possible. And it also, for me, when I bold a word, I also bump it up in size a little bit just to give it extra emphasis. So I end up bumping up the punctuation as well because it really looks out of place that way. And I will bold them both and bump them both so they are a unifying element.
But don't you feel when you do that, and I'm not saying you're wrong because God knows what the actual answer should be here.
Yeah.
But when you bold a comma, don't you feel it reads like comma? Like it's such a big comma. It's such a big semicolon. Like something feels wrong about having like, yes, we've got to go, comma. Like the comma's like, I'm here too. It's like a tag along buddy that's like, I'm happy to help.
Yeah. So, Dave, I'm going to bring a third voice on this, and it may very well be the definitive voice on this because when I saw this question, I thought, oh, thank goodness we finally have a reference for these kind of questions. And it's the Comic Book Lettering Guide, Essential Guide to Comic Book Lettering from Nate Picos.
Which I have, by the way. Great book.
You and me both. I jumped right on. And although I haven't been able to find a passage that deals with it directly, in a lot of Nate's examples, you've got a bold with a comma right next to it, and he is bolding the comma.
Well, I agree. And listen, Nate knows more about lettering than you and I will ever forget. So
and so I found that in a few different places. And like I said, I haven't found the passage that, if there is one, that deals with it directly, but I keep seeing it consistently done in the examples that he's got in the book. So I'm going to say that that it's a pretty good indication that I think you should be bolding the punctuation that occurs next to a bolded word.
I think that's brilliant. And remember, when you write boo hag, you're going to want to bold both boo hag and the comma, and that'll get you where you want to go.
Oh my gosh, yes. And my question is boo hag hyphenated?
I don't know, Brad. The man was very drunk. Let's just put it that way.
The man was hyphenated.
Hyphenated.
And that means I get to hyphenate my way over to this by telling you that you've been listening to ComicLab, the show about making comics and making a living from comics.
Your hosts have been my pal Brad Geiger, the editor of webcomics.com and the creator of Evil Inc. at evil-comic.com.
And my good friend Dave Kellett, the co-director of the comics documentary Stripped, and the cartoonist of Sheldon at sheldoncomics.com and Drive at drivecomic.com.
And the ComicLab theme song is used with permission from Andy Creighton at theworldrecord.net. And this episode was edited by Matt Woodard of Woodsong Productions over at www.woodsong.media.
If you love ComicLab, you can rate and review the show on Apple Podcasts, and you may hear your review featured on a future episode. And while I've got the opportunity, I want to thank all the people that hit social media this past week that told us that they got their Spotify Unwrapped, and they were thrilled to see that ComicLab was their #1 podcast. I don't know whether you saw that on your socials as well, but I had tons of people all throughout that week that Spotify Unwrapped came up saying, hey, ComicLab is is my #1 podcast.
That was awesome, and it was really warming heartwarming for Brad and I to see that, and the kind words that went along with it. So we thank you guys for all of that. And I will say, ComicLab is made possible by your support, year after year, day after day, over at Patreon.com/ComicLab. So we'll go ahead and say that twice with a thank you. Patreon.com/ComicLab.
Dave, I think I would make a perfectly good Disney princess.
Oh, I would love to see Brad as Bradley Rella. Just whistle while you draw boobs.
I think we could do a whole series of songs. You know, I could be as the Little Mermaid. I could be up where you live, up where you walk, up where you spend all day in the sun. I'd be a great princess.
You, Brad, I have said this from the first day that I met you. You would be a wonderful princess.
Yes.
And I say that with all sincerity and love. No joking involved. You are a princess through and through. Your heart, even when you're in the grocery store complaining about the lack of your favorite gum in the aisle, you are a princess through and through.
Actually, I think you'd be a good princess too, and I know why. Because as you keep waiting for that shipment of books to come, I keep hearing you say, "Someday my prince will come."